All right, welcome back to the show. Today I got my buddy Gabe Hamel, and after a quick Google search, I found out a few things about him that I did not know. I kind of knew about his real estate portfolio, which he's a high-level real estate investor. I did not know he was a wrestling state champion, and I did not know he was a Guinness World Record holder. So let's dive into that. Gabe, man, welcome to the show.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me. Always good to hang out with you, virtually or in person. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you coming on. So I want to hear, it's amazing how many people that come on the show and they have some type of high level background, and a lot of it being sports. So it sounds like you're a high level wrestler. How'd that look? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, wrestling shaped in some ways a lot of my early years. I took a lot of the lessons I learned in the wrestling room into the real estate investing world. I mean, really going back, to the high school days, even prior to high school, like I was the kid that really, I had a hard time connecting the dots of like, how is what the teacher's teaching me? How does that relate to the real world? Like I was always just daydreaming. I just had a hard time paying attention. I think wrestling and the social aspect of school is really the only thing that probably kept me in high school for sure.
We can definitely relate there. So you're a state champion. How many years did you wrestle?
So I didn't start wrestling until my freshman year of high school, which is rare to then, win a state championship my senior year. So, I was a 110-pound freshman kid. The wrestling coach would find me in the hall and say, I actually played freshman football. And he said, the first thing he ever said to me was, what the hell is a guy like you doing playing football? You need to wrestle. And I'm like, no way. I'm not wrestling. Well, he would bug me. Like every time he saw me, he would just say, give me 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks. So, freshman year, I was like, I'm going to go out for 2 weeks just so this guy leaves me alone. How bad could 2 weeks be? So yeah, freshman year, I joined the wrestling team and it was hard practices. I mean, they're pushing you hard, but something about that kept me there, and something about that hard work, that discipline, that, showing up for 2 hours after school and working my ass off, it resonated with me. I ended up falling in love with the sport. There's weight classes. So it's like everybody has a place. And that wrestling room, it taught me, desire, discipline, determination. It really taught me how to set a goal and work towards that goal. And there's a big mindset aspect, and that's where I say the parallels from the wrestling room to the real estate world is, I believed a year before that state championship that I would be a state champion wrestler. So my junior year, I qualified for state and I was 2 and out. I mean, I lost my first 2 matches and I was out of the tournament, but I decided then and there in my mind, I would be a state champion, state champion that next year. And I worked my ass off for that next year. So I believed it in my mind. And then I put the things in work that needed to happen in order to achieve that.
How much, and I want to keep going with that, but how much of just building confidence and then obviously believing in yourself, do you think that's parlayed into your real estate success?
100%. So, I mean, 100%. I think I was fortunate. I credit my mom to always saying, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. And at a very young age, I kind of adopted that mantra and believed it. And I think the wrestling was the first time I really saw that manifest in my life, where I'm like, wow, I believe something so strongly, full-heartedly, and I put in the work and it manifested into existence. Like this is real. And it's not just law of attraction. It's not like just belief. I mean, you still have to, work towards those goals and do the things that are going to get you there. But very similar, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2002, right? And I'm thinking like, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to be financially free, and real estate will be my path to do that. Now, I had no idea how, but it was the first book I ever read in my entire life, word for word, cover to cover. And I was like almost 20. I was like 19 years old. I read that book and I'm like, this makes sense. This is not the stuff they're teaching in school. I will be financially free. Real estate will be how I do that. And so very similar to wrestling, like I believed it in my mind first that it was possible. Then I did the things that I needed to do in order to achieve that.
Yeah, that's wild that you read that in 2002. And I want to get into that, but we both have kids, and I've thought about this too, because I played basketball and I was fortunate to at least be on the college basketball team. But that was also, and looking, it's easier to plug the pieces in looking back, right?
I didn't know that about you, by the way.
Yeah, well, small college, D2, but I was on the team, but I had to scratch and claw to do it. But I've kind of hung my hat on that too, right? I had some success from, there's no reason I should have been on that team. I was not, my freshman year, somehow there were 40 some kids. I was like 40 out of 40 kids. I was the worst kid there. But junior year, like I had gotten to the point where I was earning playing time, but I've kind of built confidence off that. Having kids, whether they play sports or not, how do you, I guess, instill that confidence or find something that they can build confidence off of going forward?
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I mean, in some ways, I think parents give themselves too much credit for how their kids turn out, right? Like you take the nurture versus nature, right? Like, I mean, in some ways we're responsible both on the nurture and the nature side. They come from us and we're the one raising them. But I also think about, like, I valued things differently than my parents. There's a lot of things positive that I took away from my parents. And there's a lot of things that I had no interest in, right? Like, I had very kind, loving parents. They also both worked barely above minimum wage jobs. And like, they weren't attracted to business and they weren't attracted to, growth. Like, I felt this very innate, like, desire. Like, I went and got a paper route at 12 because I wanted to make my own money. Right. Like, and so my parents did instill a lot of these important things. And some of those I adopted, and some things I'm like, that doesn't actually align with the vision of my own life. And that's okay. I think with kids, like, I look at my own two. I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, very different kids. Like, as an example, like when they were little, we have this steep driveway. And when they were little, I'd be like, you never waste the driveway. And I'd sprint up the driveway. Well, my youngest still does that. He's like, never waste a driveway. My oldest at a young age was like, I don't think I want to use, more than 20% of my energy. Why would I race up that? So, my 14-year-old dedicated to soccer, like 110%. On days off, he's at the field training 4 hours a day. He's, training with one of the college coaches. My 16-year-old has no interest in that, but plays guitar and can just, and will just jam and dedicate to learning guitar. So they're wired very differently. And, I don't think that it's necessarily, hey, it's taught. Yes, my kids have seen me, put an importance to health and fitness and work hard. But I think it's something inside of them that decide, like, one of them wants to physically work hard. The other has more interest in working hard in music. Right. I mean, it's similar and different at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I always think, and I love diving into that, because I always think about my kids. It's like, what drove me? How can I try to, pull some type of lever to help them? But like you said, it's typically inside of them, and they live a different life than us, right? Different patterns that they're going to run into, different things they run into, different adversity, all that stuff, which shapes them.
Yeah, and when I look back, like, my parents, they never pushed me in sports. They never pushed me to college. They never pushed me to be, which I never went to college. They never pushed me to be, to build a business or become, financially free. I joined the military. They definitely never pushed me towards that. I had, my parents were more on the hippie side, right? So it's, you just kind of find yourself as you grow and go that route.
Yeah, sure. So you just answered my next question. You didn't go to college. I'm sure as a state champion, you got college offers. What happened there?
Yeah, I had some opportunities to wrestle in college. I mean, part of it was a decision whether I wanted to spend the next 4 or 5 years cutting weight. I cut hard my senior year. I was a 125-pound state champion. I think I weighed about 147 pounds 2 weeks after the state tournament. Maybe a week after, that was part of it. I also joined the military at 17 while still in high school. So my senior year, I joined an Army National Guard infantry unit. I had a friend of mine say, hey, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. I laugh because it's just like the commercial, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, part-time. And at the time they said 90% tuition they'll pay for and GI Bill. So you could actually make money going to school. I did take a few classes at a community college right after high school to try it out. I knew that wasn't my path. So I joined my senior year of high school, went off to basic training in 2000 after I graduated high school. And then really after high school, I just took a bunch of odd and end jobs. And then when I read that book, I read that famous purple book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, in 2002, I was dead set, like real estate will be my path. Well, shortly after that, I got a phone call and I was deployed over to the Middle East for a year. It was a 14-month deployment. So I'm reading this book, or I finished the book. I started reading some of the other books in the Rich Dad series, and I'm fired up, like mentally fired up. I'm like, I'm gonna invest in real estate. I'm gonna start buying properties. Like I'm gonna do what I need to do. Keep in mind, I was living in a friend's attic for $100 a month at the time, and then on a Friday night, I got a phone call, and 5 days later, we were gone. And so, on that deployment, I still really kept a lot of those lessons that I read in these books in my mind. Like I was determined that I'm going to come back alive. I'm going to come back not too messed up, and I'm going to come back and start investing in real estate.
Well, one, thanks for your service. So how did that's crazy. How did you run into the Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2000? Because sounds like same age. I was 20 in 2002. I wasn't reading anything. I wasn't reading books at school, anything. So how did you stumble upon Rich Dad Poor Dad? That
book was so impactful, and I hate that I have no idea how that book got in my hands. No idea. Like, and it's crazy because I got all the way through high school without ever reading a book. And I mean, I later, realized I had some dyslexia and some different things, which makes sense. But for a book to be that impactful and not remember how it got in my hands, I don't know. I wish I remember, but when I picked that book up, it was literally the first book that I read word for word, cover to cover. It was the first. Prior to that book, I think I would have probably said, I don't like to learn. I don't like education. Now I'm constantly, for the last, 20 something years, I'm constantly finding ways to educate myself and learn. Just, the box of school just wasn't the right environment for me. It is for some, but for me, it's audiobooks, it's podcasts, it's masterminds, it's events, it's getting around people that are doing the thing that you want to do. And so it just opened my eyes not only to real estate and financial freedom and other ways to live your life, but also other ways of learning that really did resonate with me. And so it kind of set me on a path to, hey, I actually like to learn as long as it's things that I want to learn about and that I'm excited about. Yeah. Well, it seems like a lot of you can probably say most entrepreneurs have a similar path where school was not their favorite thing to do. I didn't study. I mean, I got through C's and D's and, gets degrees. I got through, but same type of deal. And I don't remember the title of the book, but the first book that I read and just absorbed it was Jack Canfield's, I don't remember, 7 Laws of something, some personal development book. And I remember that. And I was probably mid-20s. But it took me a little bit longer than you. So 2002, you read that book. Obviously, you're deployed. How did you when you came back, how'd that look? How'd you get into real estate investing? Yeah, it was interesting. So I was deployed 2003 to 2004. So I come back in 2004. I had one more year of my military commitment. So I got out in 2005, but it was just back to the 1 week in a month training. And I just started looking at properties. Now, keep in mind, 2004 or 5, this is right during the subprime. Yep. So I went to a mortgage broker. I was just trying to be around anything that had to do with real estate. So I remember 2004, I'm going to open houses. I'm calling random realtors. I'm calling every for sale sign. I'm looking at the MLS. I'm on Craigslist. I'm just doing anything real estate related. And I meet this mortgage broker, which it actually came full circle because just 2 days ago, I ran into the mortgage broker who helped me finance my first house. He's retiring this week. So it was kind of a neat full circle moment. But he said, hey, yeah, you qualify for a loan. And so this is 2000, end of 2004. I have no job, no down payment, no income, but this qualified for a loan. Of course I do. It's subprime 2004 or 5. Everybody qualifies for a loan. And so, instead of going out and buying some property that I couldn't afford, I bought a pretty basic 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It was a ninja loan. It was was that no income, forget what that stands for, but yeah, it's like a stated income loan. 2005 was 100% financed from the bank. And it was 2 banks. There was an 80% loan from one bank, 20% loan from the other bank. And I'm just doing basic math going, well, like this property, if I ever, move from there, it still pencils well as an investment property. It'll still cash flow a couple $100 more than my mortgage. So I rented out 2 of the bedrooms. Now they call it house hacking. This was before I knew what the term house hacking was, but it made financial sense. I rent out 2 of the bedrooms and I can live for less than I could anywhere else. So I did that in 2005. I did that again in 2006 and again in 2007. So I'm thinking by 2007, I'm like, I have 3 houses. Most of the people I know don't have any houses. I'm like, I'm doing good. 3 houses. This is easier than the books. Like this is too easy. I'm just going to go to the bank once a year for the next 20 years. I'll have 20 houses. This is crazy that everybody doesn't do this. Also in 2006, I'd opened up a small nutrition store that I ran for a couple years with one of my friends that I was deployed with and the guy that was renting one of the bedrooms in that first house. That business never made a lot of money. It was low overhead, but some months were, a couple $100 a month cash flow positive, and that wasn't going to cut it. My first kid was born in 2008, and I shut the store down in 2008, and that was kind of my first big oh shit moment. I own these 3 homes, 2 rentals, 1 I live in, first kid's born, and I don't have a job, and now the business is shut down. I have these couple houses, but a couple $100 a month of cash flow is not that much to live on, especially trying to raise a family. And I thought, well, what's the most logical thing to do? I'm going to go to the bank and see if I can buy another house. So I go to the bank in 2008 and they said, you don't qualify. And I said, well, what do you mean I don't qualify? I've bought in 3 homes the last 3 years. I've made my mortgage payments on time. My credit's great. And they're like, yeah, but you don't have a job or a down payment or, income. You don't have any money. I said, well, I never needed that before. And they said, yeah, guidelines have changed a lot. Like you actually need to qualify for a bank loan now. And so, 2008, it was a wild time. I went and took a bunch of odd and end jobs. I was literally taking Craigslist help wanted ads. I worked for this company where I was mystery shopping mortgages. I just took a bunch of odd and end jobs, and eventually I landed a 30-hour a week minimum wage job in a high school special education class. At my old high school. And so I'm working this job, and like 3 months into that, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is so far from what I want in my life. I need to find another way to invest in real estate. I need to be able to replace this income. And so in 2008, that became my goal. If I could replace the income from this job, which was not a lot, my take home was about $1,500 a month. You're talking 30 hours a week, minimum wage job in 2008. Said, if I can replace this income, I will technically be financially free. I was thinking in like simple rich dad terms. Like if my income exceeds my expenses, I'm retired. I'm technically financially free. So I spent all of 2008 to 2009 every night after that job just on Craigslist looking for seller financing opportunities. Because I wasn't bank financeable and I didn't know anyone with money, I wasn't comfortable asking for hard money, and I knew no one with private money. I was set on seller financing would be my path. And after about a year of looking, I closed on 4 units, 2 duplexes side by side, and the cash flow between those 4 units and the other 3 properties I had and the 2 that were rentals, it cash flowed almost to the dollar that I was making at that job. And I stopped working after that year, and I became financially free. And that was kind of my first taste of like, hey, I am done working. So I was financially free, but I wasn't making a ton of money. Again, it was like $1,500 a month, cash flow positive, but I was in a sense free.
Yeah, dude, this story is awesome. I feel like I'm watching like a show. I'm glued to it. It's absolutely awesome. So people that are trying to get in today, and I want to continue with your story, but people that are trying to get in real estate investing today, do you think it's any different from when you got in?
I think
the principles.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think the real estate market's always changing, right? Like prices go up and down, interest rates change, lending terms change. But at the end of the day, like the fundamentals of investing really don't change much. And I think, it's easy for anyone to say at any given time, like, oh, I should have started investing earlier. I should have done this before. But just like you talk to anyone that's been around, they're like, oh, I should never have sold that house. Or when I bought that home in whatever, 1950, 1960, 1970, whatever the date, I should have bought 10. I should have bought 20, right? And so I mean, it's kind of cliche. What is it, like the best time to invest is 20 years ago, and the next best time to invest is today. There's always opportunities, and I think it does start with the belief and the desire to, first of all, want to have real estate as your path to financial freedom. And also just being clear on what your goals are. Are you trying to replace your income? Are you trying not to work? Like for me, a big driving force was my freedom of time and to not work a regular job and to not have a boss. Like there was a lot of things that I didn't want in my life, and there's a lot of things that I did, and real estate aligned with what I really wanted in my life. And I really wasn't qualified for anything else, right? Like worst case scenario, if it didn't work out, I would go get another minimum wage job. So I guess to answer your question, like, is it still viable today? Absolutely. And, I think it starts with the desire of wanting it and then just getting in the game, like get around people that are doing it, ask questions. I mean, a lot of those early activities, like I don't go to open houses anymore. I don't even buy single family houses anymore, but like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was just doing everything that I could real estate related until I found areas to niche down in that actually turned into opportunities and deals and cash flow.
Yeah. Well, and you're a very driven dude. Like and you guys watching, if you are watching, you got Gabe on camera, but you can't tell how jacked this dude is. This dude is absolutely jacked. Top one or two people that I know as far as fitness wise. You're very driven, and you're very some of this could come from wrestling and you said you're Army, right?
Correct.
It could come from that, but you're disciplined too. So do you think, and I'm sure, and we'll get into it, but you've got a group, you're dealing with, I'm sure, newbies or newer people getting in the real estate investing. How much of drive do you think is that like kicked in for you to kind of take over?
Yeah, I think having that desire and that strong why, I think plays a big role. Like if I'm driven because my why was strong. I wanted to own my time. As I said before, I didn't want to work for someone else. It was important to me to have that autonomy of like how I spent my day and my week and my year and ultimately my life. When I started having kids, it was important to me to actually be like raising my own kids and be home and be around. Like the idea of like literally the idea of getting up and going and working for someone else every day for a day, like sounds painful, let alone a week or a month or a year or, 40 years. And so I had that really strong why. And so I think that's what drove me in those early years, like find a way to succeed. And for me, I was okay not having a plan B, right? So in 2009, when I bought that first seller finance deal, I had so many people, most of which that didn't own real estate, say, isn't this risky? What if prices do this? What if the tenants move out? And I'm like, what if it works out? Like, what's the worst case scenario? That 4-unit property, the reason that was so impactful, it's not because that property is worth 3x what it is from when I bought it, but that's not why it was impactful. It was impactful because it gave me the confidence and experience to do the next one and the next one and the next one. And what that led to from 2009 to 2013, every deal I put together was a no money down seller finance deal with the only criteria that it had to be cash flow positive. Worst case scenario, if I were to default on one of those loans, which I never did, worst case, I would have given the property back. But I mitigated my risk by doing no money down and making sure it cash flowed from day one. But what actually happened is by 2014, I had better tenants paying higher rent. The property's all appraised out, and I refinanced into long-term debt in 2014 when rents were up, when prices were up, and interest rates were down. And so it was worst case scenario, I would have been in no worse of a spot than I was when I started. And part of that was I was 100% okay, burn the ships, no plan B, make this shit work or it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because this is relative to the conversation I had this morning. The guy that's selling his landscape business, and we were kind of talking about how risky that is or isn't, and compared to a W-2. And I was like, to me, a W-2 is risky because it's not, your fate is not in your hands. And he kind of looked at me like puzzled, was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right. And I don't know that a lot of people think that way, but obviously with you, You thought that way. You thought, you'd rather have your future in your hands as opposed to somebody else. And your risk was not, you didn't think it was risky going out on your own buying these houses. Am I right?
Yeah, I looked at it was far more risky for me to have a job. Just like you say, my friend Travis says, when you're a W-2 employee, you're just a line item on somebody else's, expense sheet. Right. And so I look at a job being more risky. It's one revenue stream, right? I look at real estate. Every single deal is a separate revenue stream. And there are, oh shit moments that happen in real estate all the time. But because I own real estate, I'm always in a better position when one of those things happen. I think it's actually, and I say this a lot, I think it's more risky to own a little bit of real estate than to own a lot of real estate, because those shit moments will happen.
Yep. And
if you own other real estate that's cash flowing real estate, it can help support those times when those things come up. And in those early years, yeah. And I'm not suggesting this is the best route, but like I had no reserves, right? Like almost none, but it worked out. Like in those early years when I was self-managing those properties and a tenant moved out and it's like, oh my gosh, this carpet hasn't been replaced in 20 years. And I have no money in the bank. And it's like, all right, I'm pulling the carpet. Wow. There's hardwood floor under there. I lucked out. Like that looks good. Right. And so I was willing to take those chances because again, what else was I going to do? Go back and get a minimum wage job? Like I was in a better position because I took advantage of the opportunity in front of me versus going, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if this happens? What if this happens? Every single real estate deal, I could have found a reason not to buy it, but instead I always found a reason why I should buy it and how I could buy it.
Yep. And I want to hit on a point that you made that I don't know that a lot of real estate investors absorb. You're less risky the more real estate you buy. And I talk about this because I'm in, 6 or 7 different markets with self-storage. If I was in one market and just live the lifestyle, like, oh, I've got 1 or 2 facilities and I'm in 1 or 2 markets right now, especially during the holidays when, everyone moves out of self-storage, I would be crapping my pants.
Because it'd be less revenue streams, right? And the more revenue streams, the more options you have, the more levers you can pull.
100%. So I want everyone to get that point. So obviously you started scaling here, I'm sure. Was it single family? How'd that look? And it sounds like mostly seller financing. Yeah.
So everything 2009 through 13 was all small multifamily, mostly 2 to 10 unit type stuff. 2014 is when I refinanced all of that into some long-term debt. And then I scaled from there. So around 2015, 2016 is my first partnership, just a 50-50 deal on several properties. We started buying some mixed use stuff together, ground floor commercial, upstairs apartments, and just kind of kept buying. I wasn't set on an asset class. The way I got comfortable with commercials, I started buying a few of these mixed use properties where the residential would support the loan, right? And then the commercial was the icing kind of on top. And then I realized, wow, these commercial properties, like the rent there is much higher. You're getting better tenants. You're dealing with businesses versus individuals. This is, business income that they're paying with versus, where somebody lives. And so that's kind of what got me comfortable in the commercial space was that mixed use. 2019, I started buying mobile home parks. And I really shifted the mobile home park space because originally I thought I would scale in larger multifamily properties. And 2018, 2019, I felt like cap rates were getting condensed to almost nothing. Returns were just disappearing. There was a lot of competition in that space. And a lot of these syndicators were raising capital for properties on really slim margins. I didn't want to compete with that. I don't raise capital. I don't syndicate deals. And so I was looking at where can I get greater returns? And so, in 2019, I was really focused in the mobile home park space. I have 9 parks today. 8 of them are mobile home parks. 1 of them is an RV park campground. And what I liked about that space is it really fit a lot of the criteria, very similar to like those early small multifamily properties where they were poorly managed, under rented, had some deferred maintenance. They had some upside, but didn't necessarily have to be capital intensive. And what I mean by that is, I like to call it like a lazy reposition, right? So my first mobile home park, rents hadn't been increased in almost 5 years, and utilities weren't being billed back. And so, that didn't take much for my property manager to send out a notice for a rent increase. I still was not pricing the tenants out of the market because rents hadn't been increased in so long. It was a slight rent increase. 6 months later, a slight utility bill back. So they're still below market rent at this point, but that added $30,000 to the NOI without spending a dollar. Unlike, a big, say, multifamily rehab project. And so I really started liking that space. So I spent the next couple of years really focused in the mobile home park space. And then as of late, my last few purchases have been large triple net industrial deals. I think there's always an argument of like niche down on an asset class and get really, really good at that asset class. And I'm okay with that. Like for me, I think, I know people that are kicking ass in every asset class within real estate. I don't necessarily like one more than the other. I want to buy properties that make good financial sense and have great returns. I do believe like for someone raising capital, yeah, you probably want them to be an expert in that particular asset class because they're bringing in other people's money.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Percentage wise, how many of your deals have been seller financed or zero money down was seller financed?
Gosh, it's a good question. So at this point, really, because of how I got started, it's like all house money at this point, right? Yeah. Because all those early deals were seller financing. Every deal I've done has been a combination of it's either seller financing, private money, hard money, or some combination. Those industrial deals I did also had an aspect of seller financing or broker financing or some creative aspect of the deal. I started buying, so I think 2015 or 16 is the first time I borrowed hard money. And I'd find properties that would pencil with hard money and then later refinance them into long-term debt. But every deal I've never, ever traditionally financed a property. I've refinanced into traditional lending. And the big aha for me was really in 2014 when I refinanced those first set of properties. All of a sudden I think I refinanced 10 properties in 2014. And I ended up with 30-year fixed mortgages in the low 4% because all those properties appraised out 70% loan to value or better. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I ended up with the same loans that if I would have bought in 2014, I would have had to come to the table with 30% down on each property. At the time, I never had that money. It was just like, I realized all this wealth was created out of the thin air. And I ended up with the same loans that I would have had to put 30% down on. But because of time, because of rent increases, because of where the market was and interest rates going down, I was in a position to lock in this fixed long-term debt. And so I think you can't always time a market, but you can pay attention to a market and then know when to shift and make moves according to what the market is or is not doing.
So let's run a quick scenario. Let's say you didn't have the equity in those deals to go get a bank loan. What would you have done?
I probably would have, first off, I would have tried to renegotiate on those seller contracts. I think people forget about that, right? Like a lot of those early, and I actually did on some of those. So a lot of those early seller finance deals, you got to keep in mind, a lot of the people that wanted to carry financing, and I say wanted to carry financing because I was never convincing a seller to carry financing. I would find sellers that wanted to carry financing and just ask the question, hey, what kind of terms would you be interested in? And then I felt, well, I don't think I felt it at the time. Now I feel fortunate I didn't have money because it forced me to get creative and it forced me to find sellers that didn't want a large down payment, but they wanted income. And so what happened is a lot of these sellers got comfortable with the income and they didn't actually want to be paid off. They liked having that monthly income. It was an annuity stream, a revenue stream for them. It was mailbox money. I think a lot of times people think just because you lock in a seller finance term and it's due in 3 years and you're getting close to that you can't ask the seller, hey, do you want to extend? I've had sellers ask me to extend and I've asked sellers to extend because they want the payment or maybe I want, more time to refinance. So the first thing I would have done is gone to those sellers and said, hey, the market's not supporting a refinance right now. Are you willing to extend that loan? again, worst case scenario, I'd been cash flowing the whole time. And very worst case scenario, I would have said, okay, here's your property back.
Right. Yep. No, that's absolutely awesome. Obviously you have a really sizable portfolio here. And I know you've got a smaller team. How are you running everything? Operation?
Yeah. I get asked that a lot. And I think people are surprised that I don't have this huge team. So everything that I own is third-party property management. I didn't want to run a property management company. I know that so many investors keep management in-house so they can control that. I think I've been very fortunate with great property managers. I let them do what they're good at. They're better at managing properties than I am. I think I'm good at building relationships and taking down deals and creative financing. And I like that part of it. I like building relationships. I like getting creative on financing and deals, but I don't love property management. So I have great third-party property managers. The only full-time employee I have is the guy that runs my RV park, because that is more of a business, not just real estate. He runs that thing. If you went to that RV park, you would think him and his family owns it. He runs it like his own. I just have good, dedicated, loyal property managers. I feel like I treat them well. I respect what they're good at. I don't micromanage them. I let them, make decisions. We talk about, anything out of the ordinary, but I'm not micromanaging every single move. And in return, they're making good money. They're making a commission. I've had property managers bring me deals that then they take over management of that property. So it's a true win-win. And I like the model of having third-party property management. It has served me well. And I know not everybody's had that same experience. And I've switched property management companies through the years, but right now I feel like all my properties are managed by really solid managers.
Yeah. Well, and obviously there's pros and cons to each. And we're somewhat similar the way we've got things set up for our portfolios, but you're more nimble, right? And you don't have to focus on operations. You can focus on what you're good at, which is finding deals and relationships, and you can continue growing that way. I think once you bring property management in-house, no matter what niche you're in, it's a whole nother business, right? And now you've got a whole nother arm that you've got to focus on and not just acquiring assets. So there's pros and cons to each. And like you said, you got to kind of figure out what you're good at and what works for you.
Yeah, I think figuring out what you're good at, but also what you want your life to look like. So like for me, I'm really clear on the things that are important to me outside of real estate. And that for me, that's my family, that's my health, that's having the freedom of my time to do what I want. Now, yes, I sometimes go off and do really cool things and travel, and I love that. That definitely fills a bucket. But I also enjoy just being home with the family, like doing the simple things too, right? But it's like time freedom for me. It's not so much about like what you do with that time. It's having the freedom to choose what you do with that time. So for me, like I like going in and working out in the middle of the day. I like being home when my kids are home in the afternoon. I like being able to go to every soccer game. Like those are important things. Those are important things to me. And so for me, I've just gotten really clear on what I want my life to look like, what those couple things are that are important. And I make sure anything business related aligns with my life versus just taking on more things, whether they align or not. And I have watched this with other real estate investors. I have people close to me that they get into real estate. They left a W-2 job or they left a business to get into real estate because they said they want financial freedom. And you dig one layer deeper, and it's actually time freedom they want. They want financial freedom, so they have time freedom to go spend more time with their family or give back to some cause or travel or whatever it might be. Maybe they left a 40-hour week a 40-hour week W-2 job, and now they're working 100 hours because they started a property management company, a brokerage, a wholesaling company, a flipping company. They're stressed the fuck out. They all of a sudden are hiring more people. They're managing those people. And again, if somebody wants to build that machine, good for them. And if that's their happy place, great. For me, that's not appealing. And so it's more about if that's in alignment with what you want, go for it. But for me, it's more like the advice I have is get really, really clear on what you want your life to look like, and then go build your business around that. Because once you're clear on what you want, at least for me, it's easier to go, this aligns with what I want. This aligns with my values. This aligns with what I want my life to look like, or this doesn't align and actually takes me away from all the things and reasons I got into real estate in the first place.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. And I've talked about that. And this is probably about a year ago, but Buddy and I think it was on the show, we were talking, and he's like, dude, we all get into real estate for the time freedom. And then at some point, majority of us kind of lose our ways. But I think there's a few things going on there. One, you're very intentional and you know how to say no, right? I think I've told you that you're very intentional. You know what you want out of life, and how your life to look. I don't know that a lot of people do. And I think a couple things are happening. People just create this hamster wheel, right? They're almost used to W-2 and just spinning in that hamster wheel. So they do the same thing. They recreate it. And then they also go to these masterminds. I just did a show on this where people are talking about how many units they have and how much real estate. Oh, I've got $500 worth of real estate. How much do you own? 1% of that? Do you even cash flow? What's your time freedom? Like, there's all these other things, but I think there's a lot of that mixed in, and people kind of get lost on why they got into real estate, and still kind of chasing, the shiny object that someone else has.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a good point. Like, it makes me think, and I often say this, like, I think masterminds are extremely valuable. I mean, yeah. I'm in multiple masterminds. I run my own mastermind, 0 to 100 Tribe. Masterminds have played a huge important role in my life, getting around the right people, getting in the right room. I've also watched, and, I'm in a mastermind, GoBundance, I've been a part of for 6 years. And I started noticing people have a tendency to start adopting other people's goals. Yeah. And I remember the first year in, there's all these syndicators, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to syndicate to scale. Yes. I have to do that. That's what this guy's doing. And this goal is really cool. And then I was like, wait, I had to actually step back and go, wait, what do I want? And so that's actually advice I give oftentimes when you join a high level mastermind. Get clear on what your goals are first, because there is this temptation of like, oh man, John's doing that. Like, I should do that. And this guy's doing this, and you start adopting other people's goals, and it can be dangerous because all of a sudden a year goes by, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And all of a sudden you've taken on all these things that aren't even your own goals. And it's gotten you farther away from the life you want. And so I think that clarity piece is just so important, because otherwise what's the point? Yep.
No, well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's and I remember the group that we were in together. Majority of people are syndicators or raise money in some way, and I think it was maybe 2 or 3 of us, us including them, one other guy that wasn't raising money. And I'm glad you guys were in there, because it was definitely. And I've kind of put my stake in the ground. Like, I'm not going to raise money. That's not really what I want to do. I enjoy what I'm doing. It's working. But then you see these other guys doing it. And I also think too, when you're in those rooms, I don't know how truthful a lot of people are. No one's talking about their time freedom. No one's talking about what money they're actually taking home. They're just talking about unit size, square foot size, how many properties they have, or dollar amount, assets under management, sure. Which to me, none of those matter. Not one of them. It's cash flow, time freedom, period.
100%. And I think it's good to question it. Like, I think it's good to, I love to learn what other people are doing. Sometimes there are things where I'm like, oh, I should probably implement that in my life or business. Other times it's really listening and going, I'm glad I'm not doing that. Right. I'm glad that I am choosing not to do that, but I'm always open-minded, and I want to hear and learn and educate myself, and then make an educated decision of kind of step back. Like, does this align? Does this fit into my business in a way that makes sense and is in alignment with what I want in my life? And yeah, I think it's easy to fall in the trap of vanity metrics. You nailed it. I mean, we all know, the guy or girl that it's like, oh, I own whatever, thousands of units. And it's like, you break it down and they own a very small percentage, 1/10 of 1% of a couple thousand units. And they're not getting a cash flow check in the mail. So
yeah. It's wild. Obviously you talked about some groups that you've been in and are in and you've started. What was your first one? I know you're heavily involved with GoBundance. How are those kind of reshape your thinking?
Yeah, GoBundance, it's interesting because I've been in GoBundance over 6 years. I heard about GoBundance originally from Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets. And I remember going to the GoBundance website and it said, tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous men who choose to live epic lives. And I'm like, that's me. That's what I want. That's what I want to be around. Now, I had gone to smaller meetups where I felt like it was very ego based. You get in the room and everyone's shaking hands. Here's how amazing I am. Here's my business card. Give me your money. Here's how amazing I am. Like, all stuffy and whatnot. And so, I remember reading that tagline, tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous men who choose to live epic lives. And I'm like, if that's actually what it is, that's what I want. And so I describe GoBundance now as a group of high net worth individuals, because there is a net worth requirement, but a high net worth group of men that care about more than just money. Because the pillars of GoBundance isn't just about financial wealth. It's about relationships. It's about bucket list adventures, accountability. It's about contribution and giving back. It's about the relationship. So all those other aspects outside of the wealth building are really important pillars in my life. So 2019, shortly after joining GoBundance at the end of 2018, I go to an event, and it was the first time I'd been in a room where I'm with a bunch of highly successful men that care about more than just money, and they check their ego at the door. It's like, they can share their wins. Hey, I'm kicking ass here, but I'm struggling here. Yeah. My business is going great, but I'm struggling in my marriage, or my marriage is going amazing, but my health is, going downhill. And it was the first time I saw a high level of vulnerability, authenticity. So it's been an important piece. Like for me, a mastermind is really two-part. Like it's the connections and the information, and sometimes it's very tangible or actionable, right? Like you may say something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go implement that in my business or my life. And I do that. And that one conversation, I then go implement that thing that you told me about in my business or life. And other times it's just the energy of the room. Sometimes it's just being in a room with high level players that want to live the life to the fullest, and that are motivated and disciplined and have big goals. And that is just contagious. And so sometimes it's actionable, sometimes it's the energy of the room. But for those two reasons, it's GoBundance has been a huge part of my life. I got involved with the 0 to 100 tribe, which is a real estate mastermind that I help run with Travis and Mitch. And the reason I said yes to this, because we talked about before that I say no to a lot of things that don't align. The 0 to 100 tribe is all about buy and hold cash flow real estate to achieve time freedom. So R1 is the metric. R1 is that first level of financial freedom. So like when I got that $1,500 a month that replaced that minimum wage job, that's R1. And so everything 0 to 100 was about aligned with my story and what I like to teach people, right? Buy and hold cash through real estate to achieve not just financial freedom, but time freedom. And they're just good guys. They're great business guys, but they're also just good humans. And so 0 to 100 has grown into a book, a podcast, a mastermind group. We've held a couple live events, and it's something I enjoy, pouring my energy into, because it aligns fully with not just my path, but what I see a lot of people wanting. And so it's two parts. I get to show up and, like you, interview real estate investors and highlight their stories. And I also get to pour into, our elite members and share and give where I can to help them achieve, their financial freedom of, living the life that they want and being able to do that through cash flow real estate.
That's awesome. So this kind of period of time of your journey is not that you didn't before, but more giving back, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's twofold. Like I love giving back. Like one of the things that excites me the most is watching young investors, and not young by age, but just new investors who get that excitement. It's like, yeah. I see that excitement. Like when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I see that in someone else and they're excited, I love pouring into those people, right? Like when somebody gets excited and they actually, like, that light bulb goes off and they're like, wow, real estate could be my way of getting out of this job, or this could be my way to build wealth. This could be my way to have the freedom in my life and the opportunities that I want in my life. That's exciting. I love pouring into those people.
Yep. No, that's absolutely awesome, man. I think we've hit everything. I have a few questions. One, What's this Guinness Book of World Record that you have?
Yes. So truth be told, I've unofficially broke the Guinness World Record for the most diamond push-ups in 1 minute.
Yeah.
I never officially got the Guinness World Record. So I know Brandon likes to always say, oh, he got the world record, and other people. I never officially got the Guinness World Record. At the time, on my attempt, I think I hit 93 or 94 diamond push-ups in a minute. The record was at the time, I think 84. I was trying to hit triple digits. I really wanted to hit 100, and they docked me on my form. I had like a little dip in my back, and so they didn't count it. I think I was just so hyped up trying to hit that triple digit 100 that I look at the video and I'm like, gosh, I fucked up. So yes, I don't officially have the Guinness World Record. That was several years ago.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll attempt it again. I'm not sure.
I was just going to ask that. Well, one, what was your training like? And did you try to ever do 100 in a minute, or was that like the first time?
So I've multiple times got like in the mid 90s. I'd get like 92, 93, 94, 95, diamonds in a minute. I had to send in a unofficial, like, attempted video. My form is so good in that, like, they won't even let you officially attempt. I'm like, man, I should have just hit my 90 something and my form legitimately was like weird. And I look at it, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, had an audience, you had to do all these different camera angles and whatnot. So what happened was I had done outside of like lifting, I do a lot of like high intensity body weight training, and there's a lot of push-ups in that. And I'm listening to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me book. And I'm just like fired up. And then my son was like, well, I had looked up the record for some reason. And he's like, well, how many can you do? And I was like, I don't know. Let's try it right now. And I got down and I beat the world record, like unofficially on my first attempt. And I'm like, oh shit, I can do this. I should apply to beat it. So that was kind of the motivation. It was kind of out of nowhere. I'm listening to a book and then my son was like, well, you should try to beat it. And I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Dude, that's crazy. Dude, and I was just thinking, you should go like Facebook Live or IG Live and do that before you try it again.
Yeah,
that'll go viral.
Yeah, I've thought. I don't know if I care that.
You don't care about
much.
it.
Like maybe cool, I will. I did offer to challenge David Goggins to a push-up or pull-up contest. So they were trying to get him. You know who Goggins is, yes?
Yep.
So they were trying to get him to speak at a GoBundance event, and I think his fee was like $250,000. And I think Brandon tried to get him. What?
For an hour?
I think so. Something like that. I mean, yeah. I think Brandon tried to get him to come to lunch with us once, right? For like offered him $50,000 or something. And he didn't even respond, just to come to lunch. So what I told the GoBundance staff, I said, hey, if his speaking fee is $250, tell him you got a guy that will challenge him. Because he has some pull-up world record. And it could be a short, instead of a 12-hour thing or 24, we would do like an on-stage 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I said, all right, $250,000 speaking fee, but you got to put it on the line. Say, we got a guy in GoBundance that will challenge you to a push-up or pull-up contest on stage, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it might be. And if he beats you, then we're going to donate that $250,000 to a charity. If not, then you get your speaking fee. But yeah, I don't know that they even asked him or he would have responded to that. I thought it was a creative way to try to get him to speak and challenge him. And it would be fun for everybody, win or lose.
For sure. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, last few kind of podcast questions here. What's one thing that you're better at than everybody else?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I truly believe, I don't know if it's about being better than anyone else, but I really do believe that early mantra of you can do anything you put your mind to. Like I believe that if there's something that I want to happen bad enough, I will manifest that shit into existence. Yeah. Which makes me very conscious of my thoughts, right? Because then I start thinking in a scarcity mindset. I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to make that happen. Yep. And I've seen it. I've just seen it too much in other people's lives too. It's not just about me believing that for myself. I believe that in other people's lives. It's like the guy that he starts making more and more money, right? But in his mind, he's always like, oh, I'm always broke. I'm always broke. I'm always broke. He makes more money. He's still always broke, always broke, always broke, because it's a belief. I've seen it with when I used to coach high school wrestling, I would talk about mental weight loss because I believed that I could mentally lose weight, and I would believe it. And then you take the actions towards that. And some of the high school kids that I coached that believed that, they had a lot easier time cutting weight because it's like in their conscious and subconscious that they can literally mentally lose weight. And other kids are like, it's so hard. I can't lose weight. I can't. And that is what manifests into existence. I don't know if I'm better at it than anyone else. I just believe it so strongly for myself and for others. And I've seen that manifest positive or negative in everybody's life.
I'm guessing people listening to this probably can figure that out about you. Well, how do you quiet the?
And I'd say it's like it can sound woo woo, but like that woo woo shit, it's real. It's real stuff.
It's definitely real.
What you believe tends to come true.
100%. It's definitely real. So how do you quiet the scarcity mindset voice in your head?
Yeah, I think most of the time my mind is in a place of abundance. I focus and see the good and the positive. I think everything always works out. Like I believe that. Now, it's rare that voice comes up, but I would be lying to say, I had my most challenging real estate deal in 20 years last year. And that was a challenge. It was a huge financial expense, emotional. I'm like, man, I don't want to mess up 20 years of investing in this one deal. It was my first bad partnership, and it was costly. And it was the first time in a long time that voice came up so strongly. And so all the things that I tell everybody else, like, it's going to work out. Everything works out. Like, money's not real. Like, it's like everything, it may not work out how you want. And it's like, so I was telling myself the same thing and giving myself the same advice that I would anyone else. And then being conscious of that thought, I'm going, oh shit, I don't want to think that way. Because if I'm not thinking in abundance and I'm thinking in scarcity, I feel like I'm going to attract more of that. And so it's really just shut that noise up as fast as I can. And it was uncomfortable because it's been so many, I'm just so not used to that voice and that scarcity coming up that it was like, whoa, shut up. I had to shut up that voice real fast and force myself to think abundantly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head is one, just realizing that you're having those scarcity thoughts, those negative thoughts, and just cutting it off. And I don't know that a lot of people can do that, especially regularly, right? Like it's a muscle. You've got to learn it. But I know last week, I don't know what happened to me. I wasn't myself. I had like cloudy head. I went through that. It was a scarcity mindset for a week. Like I thought I had all these health issues, like crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
But like, it was weird because I kind of knew, and I didn't change my routine or anything from the week before, anything prior. I tried to do, tweak a couple things that may help, but I had something that I was looking forward to on the weekend. And in my mind, I'm like, once I hit that, I'll be fine. And what's weird is I did. So, you got to realize, what you're going through.
It always works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always ask people, like, remember that time that one thing that you were worried about didn't work out? And everyone's like, no, I like what thing? And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. That's good. So what's next for you?
What's next? Gosh, kind of laying low for the holidays. It's December that we're recording this. So, laying low. We have some trips planned, going to Mexico in April and going to Fiji in May. Looking forward to that. And otherwise just a lot of family time over the holidays and just really trying to cherish these moments. My kids, they just keep getting older, man. They're, my oldest is almost 17 and my youngest is 14. And so, until they're, even when they're grown, I want to be involved. And so just really, focused on family time and cherishing those moments.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So if anyone wants to connect with you or maybe join your 0 to 100 community, where can they find you?
Yeah. The best way to find me is either on Instagram at The Real Gabriel Hamel or 0 to 100tribe.com. It's a great place to find me as well.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. Very inspirational, motivating story. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.